The Force flows through all living things, binding the galaxy together in an endless dance of light and shadow. But on this day, something else pierced the veil between realities, something ancient, powerful, and utterly foreign to the ways of midi-chlorians and Kyber. In the shattered governmental district of Coruscant, where the New Republic struggled to rebuild what the Empire had broken, the air itself split open. Not with the violent tear of a hyperspace malfunction, but with the precise geometric fracturing of dimensions colliding. Reality crystallized, and through that crystalline gateway came a massive cylindrical tube of pure white energy, suspended 3 meters above the rubble-strewn plaza. Inside that tube, a face materialized, wise, alien, and impossibly ancient. Zordon of Eltar had crossed the threshold between universes. The interdimensional mentor's consciousness flickered as the time warp stabilized in this new reality. His vast awareness, which had guided Rangers across Earth's timeline for millennia, now reached out into an unfamiliar galaxy teeming with life, yet fundamentally different from anything he had encountered. The morphing grid, that universal power source connecting all Ranger powers across dimensions, felt distant here, muted by laws of physics that operated on entirely different principles. He could sense something similar, though, an energy field that penetrated every living being, every planet, every star. The inhabitants called it the Force, but Zordon recognized it immediately as this galaxy's expression of universal power, the same fundamental energy that powered Ranger morphers, just filtered through different cosmic constants. The time warp tube itself had sustained damage during the crossing. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, and Zordon's form flickered intermittently as the containment field struggled to maintain cohesion. He was operating at perhaps 70% capacity, weakened by dimensional barriers and the traumatic severing from his native universe's morphing grid. Yet his mind remained sharp, his purpose crystalline. In those first moments of awareness, he scanned this galaxy's recent history through residual energy signatures and detected the echoes of catastrophic war, tyrannical oppression, and a desperate struggle for freedom that had only recently concluded. An empire had fallen, a rebellion had won, but victory had left a power vacuum, and Zordon sensed darkness still lurking in the shadows, waiting to exploit chaos. New Republic security forces arrived within minutes, surrounding the plaza with blaster rifles raised. They had seen enough strange phenomena during the war to be cautious, but this crystalline tube pulsing with unknown energy was unlike anything in their databases. Captain Tyra Venn, a veteran of Endor and a dozen other battles, approached carefully, her weapon trained on the alien face floating within the tube. She had fought too hard for peace to let some new threat emerge unchallenged. "Identify yourself," she commanded, voice steady despite the unsettling nature of the apparition before her. "You are in New Republic territory. State your origin and purpose." Zordon's eyes, glowing white orbs that had witnessed civilization's rise and fall, focused on the captain. When he spoke, his voice resonated not from the tube, but directly in the minds of everyone present, carrying weight and authority that spoke of eons of wisdom. "I am Zordon of Eltar, mentor and guardian across dimensions. I have journeyed far beyond the boundaries of my own reality, drawn by the echoes of your galaxy's suffering. I seek no conquest, no dominion. I offer only what I have always offered, the power to protect the innocent, to stand against evil, and to forge warriors of light who defend those who cannot defend themselves." The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances. More security forces arrived, establishing a perimeter. Within the hour, word reached the New Republic's provisional government headquarters, and an emergency session convened. Mon Mothma herself reviewed the initial reports, her experienced eyes narrowing at the implications. An entity claiming to span dimensions, offering power to create warriors. It sounded like either a remarkable opportunity or a catastrophic trap. She consulted with Admiral Akbar, General Rikin, and most importantly, Leia Organa, whose sensitivity to the Force might provide insight into this stranger's true nature. Leia stood before the holographic recording of Zordon's arrival, reaching out through the Force. What she sensed surprised her. The being radiated no darkness, no deception. Instead, she felt an overwhelming sense of purpose, of protective conviction that reminded her of the best aspects of the Jedi Order, minus the dogmatic rigidity that had contributed to their downfall. Yet, there was also something profoundly alien about his presence, as if he existed partially outside the normal flow of space and time. "He's telling the truth," Leia said finally, turning to Mon Mothma. "Or at least, he believes he is. But we should proceed carefully. Power offered freely often comes with hidden costs." Mon Mothma nodded. The New Republic was fragile, held together by hope and determination, but lacking the infrastructure and military might to fully secure the galaxy. Imperial remnants raided supply convoys, pirate cartels filled power vacuums on outer rim worlds, and somewhere in the unknown regions, rumors suggested Imperial hardliners were consolidating strength. If this Zordon truly offered a way to create protectors, warriors who could respond to threats the overstretched Republic fleet couldn't reach, it might be worth the risk. But Mon Mothma had lived through too much to trust easily. "Arrange a meeting," she ordered. "Full security protocols. If he wants to help the New Republic, he'll have to convince us face to face." She paused, then added, "And send word to Luke Skywalker. If this being's power truly rivals the Force, we'll need a Jedi's perspective." As preparations began for the first formal contact between Zordon and the New Republic, the ancient mentor floated within his damaged time warp, studying this galaxy's energy patterns. The Force flowed like cosmic rivers, light and dark, in eternal conflict. But Zordon saw potential for something different, a synthesis of philosophies where chosen warriors channeled universal power not through mysticism alone, but through technology, teamwork, and unwavering moral conviction. He had mentored Rangers for thousands of years, from ancient Earth warriors to modern teenagers. This galaxy, broken and desperate for heroes, needed Rangers now more than ever. But first, he would need to rebuild. The morphing grid connection was too weak. He would require this galaxy's resources, its exotic materials, and most critically, its people. Individuals worthy of the power coins, those who possessed courage, honor, and an unshakable commitment to protect life. As he waited for the New Republic's response, Zordon's consciousness reached out, searching across Coruscant's teeming billions for potential candidates. The selection process had begun. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The governmental complex on Coruscant had been hastily restored after liberation, but it still bore scars from decades of Imperial occupation. In a secure chamber 3 levels below the surface, Mon Mothma waited alongside Leia Organa, Admiral Akbar, and a contingent of security personnel equipped with weapons capable of disrupting energy fields. They had transported Zordon's time warp tube to this controlled environment using repulsor lift platforms, treating it like an unexploded thermal detonator, dangerous until proven otherwise. Zordon's face materialized within the tube, his presence filling the chamber with an almost tangible sense of ancient wisdom. Mon Mothma stepped forward, her diplomatic training keeping her expression neutral despite the strangeness of the situation. She had negotiated with Hutts, Bothans, and even Imperial officers during the war. An interdimensional entity would simply be another challenge. "Zordon of Eltar," she began, voice carrying the authority that had held the rebellion together through its darkest hours. "You claim to offer help to the New Republic. Before we consider your proposal, we need to understand exactly what you are, where you come from, and what price your assistance demands." The ancient mentor's glowing eyes met hers without hesitation. "I am what your galaxy might call a consciousness unbound by physical form, preserved within a time warp that spans millennia. In my universe, I served as mentor to warriors known as Power Rangers, individuals chosen not for force sensitivity or birthright, but for their character, courage, honor, compassion, teamwork, and an unwavering commitment to protect innocent life. These were the qualities that made them worthy to channel the morphing grid, a universal energy source that empowers Rangers across dimensions." Leia stepped closer, her force sensitivity probing the edges of Zordon's presence. "This morphing grid, is it like the Force?" "Similar in fundamental nature, different in application," Zordon replied. "The Force flows through all living things, connecting them through midi-chlorians and natural affinity. The morphing grid is technology interfacing with universal energy, creating a bridge between consciousness and power. Rangers are not born with abilities, they are given them, through devices called morphers and power coins. Remove the morpher and they return to baseline capabilities. It is democratic power, Princess Leia, not aristocratic." Admiral Akbar's bulbous eyes narrowed. "And what of these Zords you mentioned in your initial transmission, combat machines controlled by Rangers?" "Precisely, Admiral. Where your galaxy builds star destroyers and starfighters, I designed biomechanical constructs that bond with their pilots through the morphing grid. A Ranger and their Zord become one, achieving synchronization impossible through conventional piloting. These machines can combine, forming Megazords capable of confronting threats no single warrior could defeat alone." The military implications hung heavy in the air. Mon Mothma exchanged glances with Akbar, both recognizing the strategic value of such technology. The New Republic fleet was spread dangerously thin across thousands of systems. If they could deploy smaller teams of highly capable warriors supported by powerful combat machines, it might compensate for their numerical disadvantage against Imperial remnants. But Leia sensed something beneath the surface, a hesitation in Zordon's energy signature. "You're weakened," she said bluntly. "Your arrival damaged you somehow." Zordon's form flickered briefly, acknowledging the truth. "The crossing between universes nearly destroyed my time warp. The morphing grid does not exist naturally in your galaxy, and I am currently disconnected from its full power. To rebuild Ranger capabilities here, I must establish new conduits, adapt technology to your physics, and locate materials capable of channeling morphing energy. It is why I seek alliance with your Republic. I cannot accomplish this alone." "So you need us as much as we might need you," Mon Mothma observed, a hint of relief in her voice. Desperation would have made Zordon dangerous. Mutual necessity created grounds for negotiation. "I need your resources, yes," Zordon admitted, "but more importantly, I need your people. Rangers cannot be conscripted or manufactured. They must be chosen, individuals who embody the qualities I mentioned. Your galaxy has produced countless such individuals through your recent conflict. I sensed their presence even before I arrived. Heroes who fought against overwhelming darkness, who sacrificed for others, who never surrendered their principles despite terrible cost. These are the souls worthy of morphing power." A younger officer who had been silent until now, Commander Piers Thanison, a technical specialist, spoke up. "You mentioned Kyber crystals in your preliminary scans. Those are sacred to the Jedi, essential to lightsaber construction. Are you suggesting your technology requires them?" Kyber crystals resonate with the Force, Zordon explained, which is this galaxy's expression of universal energy. I have discovered they can serve as focusing elements for morphing power, creating a bridge between the morphin grid and the Force. With your permission, I would attempt to synthesize a new power coin using Kyber, proving my technology can function in your reality. The security implications of giving an unknown entity access to Kyber crystals caused immediate tension. Those crystals were rare, valuable, and spiritually significant. The Empire had strip-mined Kyber-rich worlds to build the Death Star's super laser. Handing them to Zordon felt dangerously close to enabling another superweapon. Leia felt the concern rippling through the Force, but also sensed Zordon's genuine intent. "I'll provide a small Kyber fragment from my own collection," she offered. "But the demonstration happens under controlled conditions, with full monitoring. If your synthesis succeeds, we discuss terms. If it fails, or if we detect any deception, this meeting ends, and you remain isolated until we decide what to do with you." Zordon inclined his massive head in agreement. "Acceptable, Princess. I have nothing to hide. My purpose has always been singular: to protect life from those who would destroy it. Your galaxy faces precisely such threats: Imperial remnants who cling to fascism, dark force users who embrace hatred and domination, criminal cartels that prey upon the weak. You need rangers, whether you realize it yet or not." Mon Mothma studied the ancient being carefully. Every instinct honed through years of rebellion leadership told her this was a pivotal moment. Accept Zordon's help, and the new Republic might gain a desperately needed edge. Refuse, and they would continue struggling to maintain order with insufficient forces. But creating super soldiers, even calling them rangers instead of clone troopers, didn't change the fundamental reality. Risked repeating the mistakes that had enabled Palpatine's rise. "We'll proceed with the demonstration," she decided. "But understand this, Zordon. The new Republic was built on the ashes of tyranny. We will not create another class of elite warriors who operate outside democratic oversight. If your Rangers are to protect this galaxy, they must answer to its citizens, not exist as independent actors above the law." "I would expect nothing less," Zordon replied. "Rangers have always served, never ruled. It is the first lesson I teach every chosen warrior." The meeting concluded with cautious optimism as Zordon's time warp was transported to a secured research facility. Leia lingered behind with Mon Mothma. The older woman's expression revealed the weight of her decision. "Do you think we're making a mistake?" Mon Mothma asked quietly. Leia considered carefully before answering. "I think we're gambling on someone who genuinely believes in what he offers. That's either the smartest thing we've done since Endor, or it will be remembered as the moment we invited a new kind of darkness into the galaxy." She paused, then added, "But we're out of good options, Mon Mothma. Maybe it's time to try something impossible." In the research facility, Zordon began his work, reaching out through the damaged time warp to sense the Kyber fragment Leia had provided. The crystal sang with the Force, and as his consciousness touched it, he felt the first genuine connection to this galaxy's power structure. "Yes," he thought, "this will work. The morphin grid and the Force are not so different after all. Both required balance, discipline, and worthy wielders." The synthesis had begun. The research facility hummed with activity as Republic technicians monitored Zordon's every movement through sensor arrays designed to detect force fluctuations, energy surges, and dimensional anomalies. The ancient mentor floated within his time warp tube in the center of the reinforced chamber, his consciousness focused entirely on the Kyber crystal fragment suspended before him in a containment field. Leia watched from behind transparent steel barriers alongside a dozen scientists, military observers, and security personnel ready to activate emergency protocols if something went wrong. "Beginning synthesis," Zordon announced, his telepathic voice reaching everyone present simultaneously. "This will require precise calibration. Kyber crystals in your galaxy are naturally attuned to Force users, bonding with Jedi or Sith and reflecting their alignment. I must teach this crystal a new purpose, to channel morphing energy rather than simply conduct the Force." Energy began to radiate from the time warp, different from anything the sensors had encountered before. It wasn't the serene blue-white of light-side Force energy, nor the crackling red-black of dark-side corruption. Instead, the power that flowed from Zordon carried a prismatic quality, shifting through colors like light through a spectrum. The technicians murmured in fascination as their instruments struggled to classify the readings. The Kyber fragment responded, its natural crystalline structure beginning to resonate with the morphing energy. Zordon's consciousness interfaced directly with the crystal's atomic lattice, reshaping molecular bonds and creating new pathways for power to flow. It was delicate work requiring millennia of experience and understanding of how universal energies manifested across different dimensional frameworks. The crystal sang, a high, clear note that made everyone in the chamber feel something profound was occurring. "The Force resists," Zordon observed, his mental voice strained. "The Kyber wishes to remain pure, to serve only as it has always served. But I am not corrupting it. I am showing it a complementary purpose, a synthesis of two universal truths." His form flickered as he channeled more power, the damaged time warp struggling to contain the energy flow. Cracks widened across the tube's surface, and warning alarms began to sound. "Energy levels spiking beyond safe parameters," a Celestan technician reported frantically. "Recommend immediate shutdown." Leia felt it through the Force, the crystal's confusion, Zordon's determination, and the precarious balance of energies that could either result in breakthrough or catastrophic failure. She stepped forward, placing her hand against the transparent steel barrier. "Zordon, you're pushing too hard. The crystal is fighting you because you're trying to force change. The Force requires acceptance, not domination." The ancient mentor's eyes found hers, and in that moment, understanding passed between them. Zordon had spent millennia as a mentor, teaching Rangers to work with power rather than against it. But desperation to prove himself in this galaxy, to rebuild quickly and offer aid to these people in need, had made him aggressive. He was treating the synthesis like an engineering problem when it required the same philosophy he taught every Ranger recruit: patience, harmony, and respect for the power you wielded. Zordon's energy output softened, became gentler. Instead of reshaping the Kyber crystal, he began to communicate with it, his consciousness reaching into the quantum structure not as an invader but as a partner. The Force within the fragment recognized the shift, and something extraordinary occurred. The crystal began to change voluntarily, its structure adapting to accommodate both Force energy and morphing power simultaneously. It wasn't replacement, it was evolution. The fragment transformed before their eyes, its natural clarity taking on a subtle geometric pattern that hadn't existed moments before. The color shifted, settling into a deep crimson that pulsed with internal light. Zordon guided the transformation carefully, channeling the last of his accessible morphing energy into the crystal until finally, with a flash of prismatic light, the synthesis completed. The crystal floated in the containment field, no longer raw Kyber, but something new entirely, a power coin, the fundamental artifact that would enable a warrior to access Ranger abilities. The time warp tube flickered dangerously, and Zordon's form became translucent. The effort had cost him significantly, draining his already diminished reserves. But his voice carried triumph despite the exhaustion. "It is done. The first power coin attuned to your galaxy's physics. This coin channels both the morphing grid and the Force, creating a synthesis that honors both power sources. A worthy warrior touching this coin will form a bond, allowing them to morph into a Red Ranger, the leader, the heart of any team." Leia felt the power radiating from the transformed crystal. It sang to the Force, yes, but also to something beyond. That universal energy Zordon called the morphing grid, now tethered to this reality through Kyber as an anchor point. The implications were staggering. If one coin could be created, more could follow. An entire team, multiple teams, a network of Rangers capable of operating where Republic forces couldn't reach. Mon Mothma entered the chamber after receiving word of the successful synthesis. She studied the power coin with the calculating gaze of someone who had built a government from rebel cells and political will. "How many warriors would you need for a functional team?" "5 is traditional," Zordon replied, his voice weaker now. "Red, blue, black, yellow, and pink Rangers, each representing different strengths and working in perfect synchronization. But we could start with 3 if necessary. The important factor is not quantity but quality. The individuals chosen must be worthy. The coin will reject those who lack the proper character." "And the Zords?" Admiral Akbar asked, ever the military strategist. "You mentioned biomechanical constructs. Can those also be synthesized using our galaxy's materials?" "Given time, yes. Zords require significantly more resources than power coins, exotic metals, power cores, and Kyber crystals of substantial size to serve as their hearts. But I have designed Zord technology for thousands of years, adapting it to countless worlds and situations. Your galaxy possesses advanced manufacturing capabilities and materials I can work with. The challenge will be scaling production without compromising quality or control." Commander Thanison was already running calculations on his datapad. "If we dedicate a shipyard facility, somewhere secure, away from the core worlds, we could potentially manufacture Zords within standard construction timeframes, months rather than years, especially if we adapt existing Republic Dreadnought designs as the base framework." The meeting shifted into technical discussion as scientists, engineers, and military personnel began planning how to integrate Ranger technology into the new Republic's defense infrastructure. But Leia remained focused on the power coin, reaching out to it through the Force. She sensed its potential, its call for a worthy wielder. And she also sensed something troubling. This power, while noble in purpose, could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Clone troopers had been sold to the Republic as protectors, and they had been, until Order 66 turned them into executioners. "We need safeguards," Leia said, interrupting the technical enthusiasm. "Power coins that can only be used by individuals of verified character. Morphers that can be deactivated if a Ranger goes rogue or becomes compromised. Some form of accountability that prevents this technology from becoming another tool of oppression." Zordon's weakened form focused on her with approval. "Your caution honors you, Princess Leia, and I agree completely. In my experience, the power coins themselves serve as the primary safeguard. They bond only with worthy individuals and become inert if that worthiness is compromised. A Ranger who betrays their principles will find their morpher unresponsive. But additional security protocols are prudent. I am mentor, not dictator. The Rangers must serve this galaxy's people, not me." Mon Mothma made her decision. "Very well. We'll authorize a pilot program. 5 Rangers, 5 power coins, and 1 small Zord as a proof of concept. You'll have access to the resources you need, but every step will be documented and reviewed. If this succeeds, we expand the program. If it fails, or if we detect any misuse, the project ends immediately. Acceptable, Zordon agreed, but we must begin the selection process immediately. The coins will take time to synthesize now that I understand the technique, but identifying worthy candidates requires observation, testing, and careful judgment. I will need access to Republic personnel files, medical records, and psychological profiles. More importantly, I will need to meet potential Rangers face to face. The coin may judge worthiness, but I must judge compatibility, whether these individuals can function as a team. As the meeting concluded and plans began to solidify, word of Zordon's successful demonstration spread through the New Republic's upper echelons. Not everyone was pleased. Military hardliners questioned why the Republic needed super soldiers when they should be rebuilding fleet strength. Force traditionalists wondered if this morphing technology would corrupt those who used it, creating Force users who bypassed the discipline and training the Jedi had required. And in the shadows, Imperial intelligence remnants learned of Zordon's arrival and immediately began planning how to steal this technology for themselves. The game had changed. Zordon had proven his abilities and earned provisional trust. Now came the harder part, finding 5 individuals worthy of becoming the galaxy's first Power Rangers, and doing so before those who craved power for darker purposes could interfere. The ancient mentor strengthened his damaged time warp as much as possible, conserving energy for the trials ahead. He had successfully adapted Ranger technology to this galaxy's physics. Next, he would adapt to its people. And somewhere in the vast sprawl of Coruscant and beyond, 5 warriors waited to discover their destinies, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. The selection process began 3 weeks after Zordon's successful power coin synthesis. The ancient mentor had insisted on direct observation, rather than relying solely on personnel files, arguing that worthiness revealed itself through action and character, not reports and statistics. Mon Mothma, still cautious about the entire program, agreed to provide access to Republic military personnel under the guise of routine evaluations. Zordon's time warp tube was transported to a training facility on Coruscant's outskirts, where candidates could be observed during combat simulations, tactical exercises, and crisis scenarios without realizing they were being tested for something far greater than standard duty. Leia assisted in the selection, her Force sensitivity providing insights Zordon's interdimensional consciousness couldn't perceive. Together, they observed hundreds of candidates, pilots, soldiers, intelligence operatives, engineers, and support personnel who had proven themselves during the rebellion. But Zordon's standards were exacting. Courage under fire wasn't enough. Combat skill alone didn't qualify. He sought something deeper. Individuals who acted with honor when no one watched, who sacrificed personal glory for their team's success, who showed compassion even toward enemies, who never gave up despite impossible odds. The first candidate revealed herself during a hostage rescue simulation. Lieutenant Kale Torin, a human woman from Corellia, led her squad through a scenario where civilian lives hung in the balance. When the simulation's parameters shifted, introducing innocent bystanders into the line of fire, most squad leaders proceeded with acceptable casualties, calculated as necessary losses. Kale refused. She improvised a high-risk strategy that placed her own life in jeopardy, using herself as bait to draw hostile forces away from the civilians. The gambit succeeded, but barely. She completed the simulation with injuries and a perfect civilian survival rate. That one, Zordon said with certainty, watching Kyle refuse medical attention until her squad members were treated first. She possesses the heart of a Red Ranger, leadership through sacrifice, tactical brilliance tempered by compassion, and unwavering commitment to protecting life. She will be the first. Over the following days, 4 more candidates emerged from the thousands observed. Jax Horan, a Zabrak from Iridonia who served as a starfighter mechanic, demonstrated the technical genius and steady reliability that defined Blue Rangers. During a simulated engine failure crisis, he jury-rigged a solution using incompatible parts that shouldn't have worked but did, through sheer ingenuity and refusal to accept defeat. His calm under pressure and systematic problem-solving marked him as essential to any team. The third candidate surprised everyone. Sarah Katarn, a former Imperial defector and human from Hapes, carried the psychological scars of having served the Empire before recognizing its evil. She now fought for the Republic with ferocious intensity, seeking redemption for her past. During a simulated infiltration mission, she encountered enemy combatants who were revealed to be conscripts fighting against their will. Instead of completing the mission through violence, Sarah negotiated surrender, offering the conscripts safe passage to Republic protection. Her ability to see beyond simple enemy versus ally dynamics demonstrated the wisdom and moral complexity Zordon valued. She would become the Yellow Ranger. The fourth was a Mandalorian, a young man named True Ordo, who had rejected Death Watch's extremism during the Clone Wars and eventually joined the rebellion. His combat prowess was extraordinary, but what drew Zordon's attention was True's adherence to the Mandalorian Rezal Nar, even when it disadvantaged him tactically. During a scenario where he could have secured victory through dishonorable means, True chose the harder path that honored his warrior code. His discipline and cultural commitment to protecting the weak made him ideal as the Black Ranger, the team's warrior heart. The final candidate proved hardest to identify. Zordon required balance within the team, someone who combined strength with compassion, who could serve as the emotional center when battles became brutal. He found her in Yara Sen, a Twi'lek medic from Ryloth, who had served on the front lines throughout the Galactic Civil War. Yara had witnessed unspeakable horrors, civilian massacres, wounded soldiers dying in her arms, atrocities the Empire committed without remorse. Yet she retained her capacity for kindness, treating every patient with dignity regardless of which side they fought for. During a simulation where enemy wounded needed treatment amid ongoing combat, Yara established a neutral medical zone and forced both sides to respect it through sheer force of personality. Her courage to stand between violence and vulnerable life embodied the Pink Ranger's role perfectly. 5 warriors, 5 coins, 5 personalities that would either form the galaxy's greatest team or collapse into dysfunction under pressure. Zordon arranged a meeting under the pretense of special assignment briefings. None of the 5 knew why they had been summoned, only that Chancellor Mon Mothma herself had authorized their reassignment. They gathered in the facility where Zordon's time warp resided, exchanging wary introductions and speculating about their mysterious new orders. When Zordon's massive face materialized within the crystalline tube, their reactions ranged from shock to skepticism. Kale stepped forward instinctively, placing herself between the unknown entity and her newfound companions. A leader's reflex, Zordon noted with satisfaction. "Who or what are you?" Kale demanded, hand near her blaster despite the obvious futility of such weapons against an energy being. "I am Zordon of Eltar," the ancient mentor replied, his telepathic voice resonating with warmth and authority. "And you 5 have been chosen for a task unlike any in this galaxy's history. You were not selected for your force sensitivity or political connections. You were chosen because you embody qualities this broken galaxy desperately needs: courage, honor, compassion, wisdom, and discipline. You have been selected to become Power Rangers." The 5 exchanged confused glances. Jax spoke up, his Zabrak accent thick with skepticism. "Power Rangers? Never heard of them." Is this some new Republic Special Forces unit? More than that, Zordon explained patiently. Power Rangers are warriors who channel universal energy through technology, becoming enhanced far beyond normal capabilities. You will receive morphers, devices that bond with your life force, and power coins attuned to your individual strengths. When you morph, you will transform into armored warriors capable of feats that would seem impossible by your galaxy's standards. Super strength, enhanced speed, energy weapons, and most importantly, the power to combine your abilities into something greater than any individual could achieve. Sarah crossed her arms, her expression guarded. Sounds like propaganda. The Empire promised enhanced soldiers too, clones bred for obedience and inquisitors twisted by the dark side. Why should we trust technology that turns people into weapons? It was the right question, the one Zordon had been waiting for. Because Rangers are not weapons, you are protectors who happen to wield power. The morphers will not control you or alter your personalities. They are tools, nothing more, and they can be removed at any time. You remain yourselves, only capable of defending others more effectively. More importantly, the power coins I have synthesized for this galaxy require worthiness. If you betray your principles, if you use morphing power for selfish gain or cruelty, the coins will reject you. They bond only with those who possess the qualities I described. True Ordo, the Mandalorian, studied Zordon with the calculating gaze of a warrior who had faced both Jedi and Sith. And who decides what's worthy? You? Some ancient being from another dimension telling us how to live? The power itself decides, Zordon replied. I am merely the mentor who guides you in using it responsibly. In my universe, I have trained thousands of Rangers across millennia. Some were warriors, others were scholars, artists, mechanics, children barely old enough to understand their responsibilities. What they shared was not age or experience, but character. They fought to protect, never to dominate. They valued teamwork over personal glory. They showed mercy when possible and strength when necessary. If you possess these qualities, and I believe you do, the coins will recognize you as worthy. Yara, the Twi'lek medic, spoke quietly but with underlying steel. And if we refuse, what happens to these coins then? I find others, Zordon said simply. This galaxy contains billions of potential Rangers, but I believe you 5 are ideal for the mission ahead. The New Republic is fragile, threatened by Imperial remnants, criminal cartels, and dark force users who seek to exploit chaos. Republic fleets cannot be everywhere at once. You can be. As Rangers, you will deploy to crisis zones, protect civilians, and respond to threats conventional forces cannot handle. You will become symbols of hope when hope is desperately needed. The 5 candidates absorbed this in silence. What Zordon proposed sounded simultaneously grandiose and terrifying, becoming heroes of legend, bearing responsibilities that could crush ordinary people. Kyle looked at her 4 companions, seeing the same questions in their eyes that churned in her own mind. This could be a trap, or it could be the opportunity to make a real difference, to protect on a scale they had never imagined possible. If we agree, Kyle said slowly, we do this together or not at all 5 of us or none, and we maintain our autonomy. We're not mindless soldiers following orders without question. Zordon's eyes glowed with approval. You speak as a true Red Ranger, Lieutenant Torin. Unity and independence, both essential. I agree to your terms. You will function as a team with collective authority. I will serve as mentor and advisor, but I do not command. You make tactical decisions in the field, and you answer to the New Republic's civilian leadership. Does this satisfy your concerns? The five exchanged glances again, and something shifted between them, a tentative trust forming, the beginning of the bond that would either save them or destroy them in the trials ahead. One by one, they nodded. Jax grinned, his Zabrak features brightening. "Well, I've rebuilt hyperdrive engines from scrap. How much harder can morphing into a super soldier be?" Famous last words, Sarah muttered, but she didn't object. Zordon's time warp brightened as he reached toward a containment field where 5 power coins waited: red, blue, yellow, black, and pink, each pulsing with inner light and the promise of transformation. "Then step forward, Rangers. Touch your coins and feel whether they accept you. If the bond forms, your training begins immediately. This galaxy needs heroes, and you 5 are about to become them." Kyle took the first step, her hand trembling slightly as she reached toward the crimson coin. The others followed, forming a semicircle before the containment field. As their fingers touched the coins simultaneously, energy erupted, not violent but welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. The power coins recognized their chosen wielders, and in that moment of connection, 5 ordinary warriors became something extraordinary. The morphing energy flowed into them, establishing bonds that would define the rest of their lives. Zordon watched with satisfaction as the first Power Rangers this galaxy had ever known stood before him, coins glowing in their hands and wonder written across their faces. The real work would begin tomorrow, training in combat forms they had never imagined, learning to pilot Zords once those massive machines were constructed, and most importantly, forging themselves into a team capable of facing darkness that would test them beyond anything they had endured during the rebellion. But in this moment, as the 5 Rangers experienced the first surge of morphing power coursing through their bodies, Zordon allowed himself cautious hope. He had crossed dimensional barriers, adapted his life's work to an alien galaxy, and found worthy successors to the Ranger legacy. The New Republic had gained its first true champions, and somewhere in the unknown regions, those who would become the Rangers' greatest enemies sensed the shift in galactic power and began planning their response. Training began at dawn in a remote facility on Dantooine, far from core world scrutiny and potential Imperial espionage. Zordon had insisted on isolation for the Rangers' initial development. They needed to bond as a team without distractions to learn the full extent of their abilities before facing real threats. The 5 warriors stood in formation before the time warp tube, each wearing their power coin on a chain around their neck, the crystals pulsing gently against their chests like second heartbeats. "Morphing is not simply transformation," Zordon explained, his telepathic voice carrying the weight of millennia of experience. "It is synchronization between your consciousness, the power coin, and the morphin grid itself. Your armor will enhance strength, speed, and durability far beyond human norms. Your weapons will materialize from morphing energy, but the true power lies in your unity. 5 Rangers working in perfect coordination become exponentially more effective than 5 individuals acting separately." Kyle raised her hand, the gesture instinctive from years of military discipline. "How do we actually morph? Is there a command phrase or mental trigger?" "Both," Zordon replied. "The morphers I have constructed for you will respond to focused intent and verbal declaration. Draw your morpher." Each Ranger reached to their belt where sleek devices had been secured, looking like advanced comlinks, but humming with contained energy. "And call upon the power. Speak your designation with conviction. Red Ranger, Blue Ranger. The coins will respond to your will." Kyle looked at her 4 teammates, seeing her own mixture of excitement and trepidation reflected in their faces. She lifted her morpher skyward, feeling the power coin against her chest flare with heat. "Red Ranger." The morphing energy exploded outward in a cascade of crimson light, enveloping her body in geometric patterns that solidified into armor. The transformation lasted mere seconds, but Kale experienced it as something profound, her consciousness expanding, her physical capabilities magnifying, her connection to the other Rangers becoming tangible like invisible threads binding them together. The others followed. Jax's blue armor carried angular patterns suggesting precision and technical mastery. Sarah's yellow suit gleamed with golden accents, radiating controlled power. True's black armor incorporated design elements reminiscent of Mandalorian Beskar plating, honoring his heritage while transcending it. Yara's pink armor seemed almost delicate until one noticed the reinforced plating protecting vital areas, protection that allowed her to fight on the front lines while still serving as team medic. They stood transformed, 5 armored warriors where 5 ordinary soldiers had been moments before. Kale felt strength surging through her limbs, felt her reflexes accelerating to superhuman levels. She looked at her hands, red gauntlets humming with energy, and slowly clenched her fists. The power was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. Now, Zordon continued, we test your limits. Attack the training remotes. A dozen spherical droids emerged from hidden ports, hovering in formation and bristling with stun weapons. They had been programmed with combat algorithms derived from everything the New Republic knew about Imperial tactics, separatist battle droids, and even reconstructed data about ancient Sith war machines. These weren't simple targets, they were legitimate threats designed to push the Rangers to their breaking points. The remotes opened fire immediately. Kyle's enhanced reflexes kicked in before conscious thought, her body moving with fluid grace she had never possessed before. Blaster bolts that would have required desperate evasion now seemed slow, almost manageable. She rolled beneath incoming fire, came up running, and discovered her speed had increased dramatically. Within seconds, she closed distance that should have taken much longer, but raw power wasn't enough. The remotes adapted quickly, coordinating their assault patterns and forcing the Rangers into defensive positions. Jax tried to flank but found himself pinned down by overlapping fire zones. Sarah's aggressive charge left her isolated and vulnerable. True fought with Mandalorian precision, but even his warrior training couldn't compensate for facing opponents designed to exploit individual weaknesses. Yara hung back, uncertain how a medic was supposed to contribute to pure combat. "You are fighting as individuals," Zordon's voice cut through the chaos. "Rangers draw strength from unity. Kyle, coordinate your team. Jax, provide tactical analysis. Sarah, watch your teammates' flanks. True, you are not alone anymore. Trust your companions. Yara, protection is not passive. Shield those who fight beside you." Something clicked in Kale's mind. This wasn't rebellion combat where every soldier fought their own battle in service of a larger strategy. This was different. 5 warriors sharing power, sharing purpose, sharing consciousness on some fundamental level the morphing energy enabled. She felt her teammates through the connection, sensed their positions without seeing them, understood their intentions before they acted. "Blue, red, pincer formation on my mark," Kale called out, her voice amplified slightly by the helmet systems. "Black, suppress their left flank. Pink, yellow, you're with me. Direct assault, center formation." The strategy formed instinctively, leveraging each Ranger's strengths and compensating for weaknesses through teamwork. The Rangers moved as one. Jax's technical brilliance identified the remote's coordination hub, a central processing unit one droid was using to synchronize the others. True's firepower suppressed enemies trying to flank, while Kale, Sarah, and Yara charged the center, their combined assault overwhelming defenses designed for individual opponents. When Sarah took a stun hit that would have dropped her, Yara was already there, her armor's energy field extending to shield her teammate while Sarah recovered. The battle shifted from desperate defense to coordinated offense in seconds. Kyle reached the coordination hub remote and discovered her armor could manifest a weapon, a blade that materialized from red morphing energy, humming with power similar to a lightsaber but fundamentally different. She drove it through the droid's central processor, and the entire formation collapsed into confusion. The remaining remotes fell quickly to combined Ranger assault. Silence descended on the training field. 5 armored warriors stood among disabled droids, breathing hard despite their enhanced physiology. Kyle demorphed, the armor dissolving back into energy that returned to her power coin. The others followed, reverting to baseline forms, but carrying the memory of what they had briefly become. Better, Zordon observed, approval warming his telepathic tone. You discovered the first lesson. Individual power means nothing without coordination. But you have much to learn. That exercise used training remotes at 30% difficulty. Tomorrow we increase to 50%. By the end of the month, you will face scenarios at 100%, against opponents that will not simply disable but destroy if you fail. The weight of that statement settled over them. This wasn't a game or theoretical exercise. They were being forged into weapons against threats that could kill them, enhanced armor or not. But they had also felt something else during that brief moment of perfect coordination. Purpose. For the first time since the Empire's fall, each of them understood they could make a difference that went beyond following orders or filling roles in someone else's plan. That night, as the 5 Rangers gathered in the facility's common area, they began the harder work of becoming a team off the battlefield. Kyle learned that Jax had lost his entire squadron during the Battle of Jakku, that he rebuilt starfighter engines as a way to maintain connection with fallen friends. Sarah spoke haltingly about her time in Imperial service, the atrocities she had witnessed, and her desperate need for redemption. True shared Mandalorian philosophies about honor and protection, explaining that Death Watch had corrupted those principles into excuses for violence. Yara described treating wounded on both sides of conflicts, seeing the fundamental humanity in every patient, regardless of their allegiance. They were not friends yet. That would require time and shared trials. But they were becoming something more important, a team that could trust each other with their lives. And in the hangar bay beneath the facility, construction had begun on their first Zord. The massive biomechanical construct was taking shape slowly, its frame built from durasteel and reinforced with kyber-infused power cores that would respond to Red Ranger's commands. It would be months before the machine was operational, but when it was, the galaxy would witness power unlike anything seen since the days of the ancient Sith war machines. Across the galaxy, however, others took notice of the Rangers' emergence. On Mandalore, clan leaders debated whether these armored warriors honored the Mandalorian way or mocked it with their colorful suits and off-world origins. In the Imperial remnants' hidden strongholds, officers analyzed reports of Republic soldiers with unexplained capabilities, wondering if the new Republic had developed super soldier programs to counter the Empire's remaining advantages. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, a fallen Inquisitor who had escaped Order 66's aftermath and rejected both Jedi and Sith felt a disturbance. Power flowing through channels that bypassed the Force entirely, power that called to his hunger for strength without restriction. The galaxy was changing, and the Power Rangers stood at the center of that transformation. Whether they would become symbols of hope or cautionary tales about power, unchecked remained to be seen. But Zordon watched his chosen warriors with cautious optimism, remembering thousands of Rangers across countless worlds. Some had fallen, others had risen to legendary status. These 5 would forge their own path, and the ancient mentor would guide them as he always had, with wisdom, patience, and unwavering faith in the potential of worthy souls. Word of the Rangers' existence reached Mandalore 3 weeks into their training, carried by a Republic liaison officer who mentioned enhanced soldiers with colored armor during routine diplomatic communications. To the Mandalorian clans, this was not merely interesting intelligence, it was a challenge. For centuries, Mandalorians had defined themselves as the galaxy's premier warriors, their Beskar armor and combat prowess legendary. The suggestion that off-worlders with technological suits might rival Mandalorian capabilities struck at the heart of their cultural identity. Bo-Katan Kryze, who had fought alongside the rebellion and now worked to reunify Mandalore's fractured clans, called for a conclave. Representatives from Clan Vizsla, Clan Ren, Clan Ordo, and a dozen others gathered in Sundari's rebuilt throne room. The discussion was predictably heated. Some clans saw the Rangers as potential allies, warriors who might understand Mandalorian values of protection and honor. Others viewed them as pretenders wearing parade armor, untested by real combat and unworthy of comparison to Mandalorian warriors. "We should test them," Clan Vizsla's representative declared, slamming a gauntleted fist against the council table. "Issue a challenge. If these Rangers are true warriors, they will accept. If they are Republic propaganda, they will hide behind politicians." Bo-Katan considered carefully. Mandalore's relationship with the New Republic was complex, grateful for support during Reconstruction, but wary of core world interference. Testing these Rangers could serve multiple purposes: assess their combat capabilities, determine if they represented a threat or opportunity, and assert Mandalorian relevance in a galaxy that often dismissed warrior cultures as relics of a more primitive age. "I will extend the challenge personally," Bo-Katan decided, "but it will be honorable combat, not an ambush or trick. If these Rangers possess the warrior spirit they claim, they deserve respect until proven otherwise." The message reached Dantooine 2 days later, transmitted through official Republic channels, but carrying unmistakable Mandalorian directness. Bo-Katan's hologram appeared before Zordon and the assembled Rangers, her scarred face and weathered armor, speaking of decades spent fighting for her people's survival. "I am Bo-Katan Kryze of Clan Kryze, and I speak for Mandalore's clans," she began without preamble. "We have heard of warriors wearing colored armor, claiming enhanced abilities through technology rather than training. This is the Mandalorian way, strength through skill and Beskar, not shortcuts. I challenge your Rangers to combat trial. Come to Mandalore. Face our warriors in the ancient proving grounds. Show us if your power is genuine or merely theater." The transmission ended, leaving the challenge hanging in the air. True Ordo stepped forward, his expression conflicted. As a Mandalorian, he understood the cultural imperative behind Bo-Katan's challenge. As a Ranger, he knew they weren't ready. Their training was incomplete, their teamwork still developing. But refusing would brand them as cowards in Mandalorian eyes and potentially damage the New Republic's relationship with a crucial ally. "We should accept," True said quietly. "Not because we're ready, but because Mandalore respects strength and despises cowardice. If we hide behind our training schedule, we lose credibility before we've even begun our real mission." Kale looked to Zordon, seeking guidance. The ancient mentor's expression was thoughtful, his vast consciousness weighing factors the Rangers couldn't fully perceive. "This is earlier than I would prefer," Zordon admitted. "But True Ordo speaks wisdom. Rangers must earn trust through action, not words. More importantly, you must learn to function under pressure you cannot control. Combat trials are ideal training. Defeat teaches humility. Victory builds confidence, and both require you to trust your bond as a team." Then we go to Mandalore, Kyle decided, her Red Ranger authority asserting itself naturally. But we go as representatives of something larger than ourselves. We're not just proving our abilities, we're demonstrating what Rangers stand for: honor, protection, and teamwork. If we fight with respect for Mandalorian culture and traditions. 3 days later, the Rangers arrived on Mandalore aboard a Republic shuttle. Bo-Katan met them at the landing platform outside Sundari, flanked by warriors from multiple clans. Her eyes immediately found True Ordo, recognizing Mandalorian bearing despite his Ranger association. She nodded respectfully to him before addressing Kale. "You accepted our challenge. That shows courage, at least." Bo-Katan gestured toward the ancient proving grounds visible in the distance, circular arenas carved from Mandalore's bedrock, where warriors had tested themselves for generations. "The trial is simple. 5 of you against 5 of our best. Combat until submission or incapacitation. We fight to prove skill, not to kill." "Do these terms satisfy honor?" "They do," Kale replied, meeting Bo-Katan's gaze without flinching. "But understand, we don't fight to prove superiority. We fight to show that different paths can lead to the same destination. Mandalorians protect through warrior tradition. Rangers protect through teamwork and technology. Both are valid." A slight smile crossed Bo-Katan's scarred face. "Spoken like someone who has already learned wisdom your armor cannot provide. Perhaps this will be more interesting than I expected." The proving grounds filled rapidly with spectators from across Mandalore's clans. This wasn't merely a combat trial, it was theater, politics, and cultural statement combined. The Mandalorian warriors who would face the Rangers were legendary. Koska Reeves, Bo-Katan's most trusted lieutenant. Axe Woves, whose skill with Beskid blades was unmatched. 3 other clan champions whose reputations had been forged in the fires of the Clone Wars and Galactic Civil War. The Rangers entered the arena in their civilian clothes, power coins visible around their necks. Zordon's consciousness watched through a remote holocam link, unable to physically accompany them but providing telepathic guidance. The Mandalorian warriors opposite them wore full Beskar armor, weapons ready, stance indicating they would not treat this as a mere exhibition. "Begin when ready," Bo-Katan announced from the arena's edge. "May the strongest warriors prevail." Kyle raised her morpher. "Ready?" she asked her teammates quietly. 4 affirmative responses came through their nascent team bond. They had trained together for less than a month, had faced only remotes and simulated scenarios, and now stood before warriors whose culture had refined combat into art form across millennia. But they were Rangers, chosen for worthiness, bonded by power that transcended normal limitations, and committed to proving that their path held value. "It's morphin' time," Kale called out, the phrase Zordon had taught them, traditional words spoken by countless Rangers across dimensions. 5 morphers rose in unison. Red Ranger, Blue Ranger, Yellow Ranger, Black Ranger, Pink Ranger. The transformation rippled through them in cascades of colored light. Mandalorian spectators gasped. They had expected armor, yes, but not this. The Rangers' suits shimmered with energy, their helmets concealing faces while projecting inhuman presence. Weapons materialized from nowhere, drawn from the morphing energy itself rather than holsters or sheaths. And the way they stood, perfectly synchronized, their body language, speaking of connection deeper than mere training, suggested these off-worlders might actually pose legitimate challenge. The Mandalorian warriors attacked immediately, their tactics honed through countless battles. Koska Reeves moved with jetpack-assisted speed, flanking the Rangers' formation while Axe Woves and the others pressed the center. It was textbook Mandalorian assault, overwhelming force from multiple angles, designed to splinter enemy cohesion and create isolated targets. But the Rangers didn't splinter. Jax called out enemy positions with computer-like precision, his technical mind tracking trajectories and predicting movements. Sarah's aggressive instincts were channeled into protecting her teammates rather than seeking glory, her yellow armor intercepting attacks meant for others. True fought with Mandalorian techniques enhanced by Ranger abilities, his familiarity with their tactics turning into advantage. Yara moved through the chaos like a dancer, her seemingly delicate pink armor proving deceptively durable as she coordinated defensive patterns. And Kyle led by example, her red blade clashing against Biscad steel in shower of sparks, while her voice kept the team synchronized. The Mandalorians were better trained, more experienced, and fought with cultural pride spanning millennia. But the Rangers possessed something unique. Their morphing energy allowed them to share perceptions, to fight as extensions of a single consciousness while maintaining individual initiative. When Koska Reeves nearly overwhelmed Sarah with jetpack maneuverability, Jax was already moving to intercept, his position predicted through the team bond. When Axe Woves pressed Kale into defensive posture, True's counterattack came from an angle that shouldn't have been coordinated without verbal communication. The battle raged for 10 minutes that felt like hours. Neither side gained decisive advantage. The Mandalorian's superior experience and equipment quality balanced against the Rangers' enhanced abilities and supernatural coordination. Finally, Bo-Katan called halt, recognizing that the fight could continue indefinitely without resolution or would escalate into injuries neither side desired. Both teams disengaged, breathing hard, weapons lowered. The Rangers demorphed, reverting to baseline forms that showed the physical toll despite their enhanced state. The Mandalorians removed helmets, offering grudging respect through nods and slight smiles. "You fight well," Koska Reeves admitted, approaching Kale directly. "Better than expected. Your armor is not Beskar, but you wear it with honor." Axe Woves studied True Ordo specifically. "You shame neither Mandalore nor your new path, Ordo. That is difficult balance to achieve." Bo-Katan stepped into the arena, addressing both groups and the assembled clans watching from the perimeter. "This trial proves what I hoped it would. These Rangers are not pretenders or Republic propaganda. They are warriors following different traditions, but sharing our core values: protection, honor, and strength in service of something greater than self. Mandalore has no quarrel with them." She turned to Kale directly, extending her arm in traditional Mandalorian greeting. "You and your Rangers are welcome on Mandalore. Should you need allies, some of our clans may answer your call. Should you face enemies, know that we judge you worthy opponents or worthy companions, depending on circumstance." Kyle clasped Bo-Katan's arm, feeling the strength in the Mandalorian leader's grip. "We came seeking respect, not conflict. Thank you for seeing past the differences in our armor to the similarities in our purpose." As the Rangers departed Mandalore hours later, their shuttle climbing toward orbit, they carried something more valuable than victory. They had earned recognition from warriors whose entire culture centered on combat prowess. Word would spread through Mandalore's extensive networks, reaching ears across the galaxy. The Power Rangers were no longer unknown. They were legitimate, proven, and worthy of attention. But attention was a double-edged blade. In the Imperial Remnant's strongholds, commanders began developing countermeasures against opponents who fought with enhanced coordination and energy-based weapons. In the criminal underworld, Hutt cartels wondered if these Rangers could be bribed, threatened, or eliminated before they disrupted profitable operations. And in the darkness beyond known space, the fallen Inquisitor who had sensed the morphing energy's emergence continued his meditation, drawing upon corrupted Force knowledge and twisted ambition. If these Rangers drew power from coins and technology rather than force training, then he could steal that technology. He could become something the galaxy had never seen, a Dark Ranger wielding power meant for protectors in service of his own hunger for dominion. 6 weeks after the Mandalore trial, Zordon's Rangers received their first true mission. Imperial remnant forces under Moff Gideon had launched a coordinated strike against Chandrila's orbital shipyards, attempting to steal Republic corvettes and cripple New Republic naval reconstruction efforts. The attack had come suddenly, overwhelming local defenses before reinforcements could arrive. Hundreds of civilian workers were trapped in the yards as Imperial boarding parties secured docking bays and began hijacking vessels. Mon Mothma's emergency transmission reached Dantooine with desperate urgency. "Rangers, this is your moment. The nearest Republic fleet is 3 hours out. Those workers don't have 3 hours. You have Zords operational now. This is exactly the scenario we created you for. Save those people." The Rangers mobilized immediately. Over the past month, their training had intensified dramatically. They had mastered morphed combat, learned to coordinate assaults against increasingly sophisticated opponents, and most importantly, they had bonded with their first Zords. The massive biomechanical constructs weren't the full team yet. Only 3 had been completed, but they represented power unlike anything the New Republic had deployed since commandeering Imperial walkers during the rebellion. Red Ranger's Zord resembled a massive mechanized tauntaun, redesigned for space combat, its body built from durasteel, reinforced with kyber crystal power cores. Blue Ranger's Zord took inspiration from aquatic creatures, sleek and fast with weapon systems optimized for precision strikes. Black Ranger's Zord was pure aggressive power, armored like a Mandalorian fortress and bristling with heavy cannons. They launched from Dantooine's hidden hangar bay, their biomechanical bodies responding to Ranger consciousness through the morphing energy bond. Kale sat within her Red Zord's cockpit, but sitting was misleading. She was synchronized with the machine on a level that made conventional piloting seem primitive. When she thought about movement, the Zord moved. When she aimed weapons, targeting systems responded to her intent rather than manual controls. It was exhilarating and terrifying, like her consciousness had expanded to fill a body hundreds of times larger than her human form. ETA to Chandrila, 12 minutes, Jax reported from Blue Zord, his technical mind already analyzing the tactical situation based on Republic intelligence. Imperial forces have secured 3 docking bays and are attempting to hijack 6 corvettes. Civilian casualty reports are incomplete, but we're looking at hundreds potentially trapped in compromised sections. "Rules of engagement?" Sarah asked from Yellow Ranger position aboard Red Zord as co-pilot. Her Zord wasn't complete yet, so she would deploy on foot once they arrived. Zordon's voice resonated through their communication systems, his consciousness linked to the Zords through the same morphing energy that powered them. "Protect civilian lives above all else. The Imperial forces are secondary objectives. If you must choose between stopping the hijacking and saving workers, save the workers. Rangers are not soldiers. You are guardians." The words settled into their minds, reinforcing principles Zordon had drilled into them since the beginning. Rangers fought to protect, not to conquer. Victory meant lives saved, not enemies destroyed. It was a philosophy that sometimes conflicted with military pragmatism, but it was also what separated Rangers from the Empire's stormtroopers or the Old Republic's clone army. They dropped out of hyperspace above Chandrila to find chaos. The orbital shipyards burned in several sections, debris floating amid the construction frameworks where explosions had torn through unfinished vessels. 3 Imperial Gozanti-class cruisers held position near the compromised docking bays, their TIE fighter escorts engaging the scattered Republic defenders. Moff Gideon's operation was surgical and efficient, seize assets quickly, extract before reinforcements arrive. But Gideon hadn't planned for Zords. The three massive biomechanical constructs emerged from hyperspace like ancient beasts from myth, their presence immediately drawing Imperial attention. TIE fighters broke from their attack patterns, vectoring toward these unknown threats. Kale felt her red Zord respond to her combat instincts, its massive frame moving with impossible grace for something so large. Energy weapons materialized from the Zord's forelimbs, blasters built on starfighter scale, but powered by morphing energy rather than conventional reactors. "Blue, take point on the TIE fighters," Kale commanded, falling naturally into Red Ranger leadership. "Black, suppressing fire on those Gozanti cruisers. Keep them from retreating with stolen ships. I'm going for the docking bays. Sarah, Yara, prepare for hot drop." The battle erupted in 3 dimensions. Jax's blue Zord danced through space like a capital ship had no right to move, his technical genius translating into impossible maneuverability. TIE fighters that should have swarmed and overwhelmed found themselves facing an opponent that predicted their attack vectors and responded with precision fire. True's Black Zord became a mobile fortress, its heavy cannons pounding Imperial cruisers with sustained barrages that forced them into defensive postures. Kyle drove her red Zord directly toward the compromised docking bay, ignoring the incoming fire that splashed against its armored hide. The morphing energy shields absorbed damage that would have crippled conventional vessels. When she reached the bay entrance, a massive aperture designed for corvette-sized ships, she deployed her ground team. Sarah and Yara leaped from the Zord's back in morphed form, their enhanced suits allowing them to survive the transition from Zord to vacuum to interior atmosphere. Inside the docking bay, Imperial stormtroopers had corralled civilian workers into a central area, while engineers attempted to bypass Republic security protocols on the stolen corvettes. The appearance of 2 colored armor warriors dropping from nowhere caused immediate panic among Imperial ranks. These weren't Republic soldiers or even Jedi. They were something unprecedented, something the Empire had no tactical doctrine for countering. Sarah moved like lightning, her yellow-armored form crossing the bay in bounds that defied normal human capabilities. Her energy blade materialized mid-leap, cutting through stormtrooper blasters before their wielders could react. She fought with controlled fury, each movement precise and devastating. Years of seeking redemption for her Imperial past channeled into protecting the people the Empire victimized. Yara took a different approach, using her pink armor's defensive systems to project energy shields around the terrified civilians. Blaster bolts meant for hostages splashed harmlessly against barriers that shouldn't exist, generated through morphing technology the New Republic's scientists were still struggling to understand. She returned fire selectively, disabling rather than killing when possible. Her medic's instinct to preserve life guiding her combat choices. Outside, Kyle's red Zord grappled with an Imperial Gozanti cruiser, attempting to flee with a stolen corvette in tow. The biomechanical construct's massive limbs locked onto the Imperial vessel's hull, and Kale felt the cruiser's engines straining against her Zord's strength through their synchronized connection. For a moment, the 2 ships hung suspended, Imperial engineering versus morphing-powered biomechanics. The Zord won. With a shriek of tearing durasteel, the Gozanti's tractor beam emitters ripped free, releasing the Republic corvette. Kyle hurled the Imperial cruiser away from the shipyards, sending it tumbling into space where it could no longer threaten civilians. The vessel wasn't destroyed. Rangers didn't kill unnecessarily, but it was neutralized, its crew forced to focus on damage control rather than continuing their mission. Multiple Imperial boarding parties evacuating, Jax reported, his sensors tracking troop movements across the shipyard complex. They're cutting their losses, but one group is heading for the civilian habitation sector. They're taking hostages. Zordon's voice carried warning. Rangers, Hostage situations require restraint. You cannot simply overpower the enemy when innocent lives shield them. This will test your discipline. Kyle felt the weight of command settle more heavily. In the rebellion, hostage scenarios often ended tragically, either through enemy brutality or desperate rescue attempts. But Rangers were supposed to be better, to find solutions that saved everyone when possible. She made her decision quickly. Blue, black, secure the shipyard perimeter. Don't let any more Imperial forces escape with Republic assets. Yellow, pink, you're with me. We're getting those hostages out. Luke Skywalker arrived at Chandrila in the final stages of the battle, his X-Wing dropping from hyperspace alongside the vanguard of Republic reinforcements. He had been training on a remote world when Mon Mothma's urgent message reached him, asking him to observe the Rangers' first major deployment. As his fighter approached the shipyards, Luke reached out through the Force, trying to understand the strange energy signatures emanating from the massive biomechanical constructs battling Imperial forces. What he sensed disturbed him. The Zords radiated power, yes, but it flowed through channels that bypassed the Force entirely. Their pilots, the Rangers, showed Force presence no stronger than average beings, yet they wielded abilities that rivaled what Jedi achieved through years of training. It was wrong somehow, like watching someone walk on air without understanding how gravity worked. Luke watched through his canopy as a red-armored warrior, the leader, he assumed, deployed into the habitation sector, where Imperial troops held civilians at gunpoint. The Ranger moved with confidence born from more than skill, a certainty in her actions that reminded Luke, uncomfortably, of how he had felt during his final confrontation with Vader and Palpatine, when the Force had flowed through him with terrifying clarity. Inside the habitation sector, Kale, Sarah, and Yara faced off against 8 stormtroopers holding 23 civilian workers hostage. The Imperial sergeant's voice crackled through his helmet's external speakers. "Back away, or we start executing hostages. Your armor won't matter when their blood is on your hands." Kyle felt the team bond thrumming with tension. Sarah wanted to charge, her aggressive instincts screaming that speed and violence could solve this. Yara's protective nature made her want to shield the hostages, but her barriers couldn't extend far enough to cover everyone before the Imperials pulled triggers. They needed a different approach, something that used their unique abilities in unexpected ways. "Zordon," Kyle subvocalized through her helmet comm, trusting the ancient mentor's wisdom. "Options. You possess abilities these soldiers do not anticipate," Zordon replied calmly. "The morphing energy enhances more than strength and speed. It enhances every aspect of your being, including your capacity for strategy, for reading situations, for finding the third option when only 2 seem available." The answer crystallized in Kale's mind. She looked at Sarah, then Yara, and through their bond transmitted a plan complex enough to seem impossible. But that was the point. Rangers did impossible things. "Now," Kale said simply. 3 things happened simultaneously. Yara's energy shields burst outward in a blinding flash, temporarily overloading the stormtrooper's helmet optics. Sarah moved in that moment of blindness, her yellow armored form crossing the distance between them in an eye blink and disarming 4 troopers with precise strikes that avoided lethal force. And Kale's energy blade hummed through the air in a perfect arc, slicing through the remaining blaster rifles' power packs without touching the soldiers holding them. The entire engagement lasted 3 seconds. When the Imperial troops recovered their vision, they found themselves disarmed, surrounded, and facing 3 Rangers whose body language promised they could end this violently if necessary, but clearly preferred not to. The sergeant raised his hand slowly, recognizing defeat. "We surrender," he said quietly. As Republic security forces arrived to process the captured Imperials and evacuate the rescued civilians, Luke Skywalker landed his X-Wing in one of the secured bays. He needed to meet these Rangers personally to understand what Zordon had created. The Force whispered warnings, but it also whispered something else: recognition that these warriors, whatever their methods, fought for the same cause he did: light against darkness, protection against predation, hope against despair. But Luke couldn't shake his concern. He had seen what happened when the Republic created enhanced soldiers without proper oversight. The clone army had seemed like salvation too, right until Order 66 transformed protectors into executioners. These Rangers might have the best intentions, but power without wisdom led to tragedy. He needed to speak with Zordon before this program expanded further. The galaxy had just witnessed what Power Rangers could do. Now it would decide whether that was cause for celebration or alarm. The meeting took place in Chandrila's governmental complex 2 days after the shipyard battle. Luke Skywalker stood before Zordon's time warp tube in a secured conference room, studying the ancient entity with both Jedi sensitivity and personal concern. Mon Mothma had arranged this conversation after Luke expressed his reservations about the Ranger program, believing that dialogue between the galaxy's last Jedi and its newest mentor might resolve tensions before they became conflicts. Zordon regarded Luke with equal interest. He had sensed this young man's Force presence from across the system. Powerful, still developing, carrying the weight of legendary legacy and traumatic history. Luke Skywalker had defeated the Emperor and redeemed Darth Vader, feats that would echo through this galaxy's history for generations. But Zordon also sensed uncertainty in him, the self-doubt of someone thrust into mentorship before feeling ready for the role. "Master Skywalker," Zordon greeted him formally, "I have wanted to speak with you since my arrival. You are this galaxy's guardian of Force traditions, just as I am guardian of Ranger principles. We should be natural allies." Luke's expression remained carefully neutral. "I'm not sure we should be allies, Zordon. What you're creating, these Rangers, it concerns me deeply. The Republic tried to shortcut the challenges of protecting the galaxy once before. They commissioned a clone army, soldiers bred for obedience and enhanced for combat effectiveness. For years, those clones served honorably. Then a single command turned them into executioners who destroyed the Jedi Order. How are your Rangers different?" The question hung in the air, weighted with trauma and legitimate fear. Zordon understood immediately. This wasn't abstract philosophical debate. Luke had lived through the consequences of militarized enhancement, had lost mentors, and watched an entire order fall because someone had built back doors into supposedly loyal protectors. "The difference is fundamental," Zordon replied carefully. "Clone troopers were created as property, designed to obey without question. Their autonomy was compromised from conception. Rangers are volunteers, chosen for character rather than engineered for compliance. The power coins bond with worthy individuals, but do not control them. A Ranger can remove their morpher at any time, can refuse orders they believe are unjust, can walk away if their principles are violated. They are empowered, not enslaved." "Can they, though?" Luke pressed, stepping closer to the time warp tube. "You speak of worthiness and character, but who defines those terms? You do. You're an ancient being from another dimension, Zordon. Your values might align with protection and justice, but they're still your values imposed on warriors you've chosen. What happens when a Ranger disagrees with your definition of worthiness? Does the coin reject them? Does their power simply vanish because they made a choice you disapprove of?" Zordon paused, acknowledging the validity of Luke's concern. The power coins respond to fundamental character traits: courage, honor, compassion, selflessness, integrity. These are not arbitrary standards I invented, but universal virtues that appear across cultures and dimensions. If a Ranger betrays these principles, if they use morphing power for selfish gain or cruelty, Yes, the coin will reject them. But disagreement is not betrayal. A ranger can question me, argue with my counsel, even disobey if they believe I am wrong. The coins measure their actions and intentions, not their obedience. Luke absorbed this, his force sensitivity probing for deception or self-delusion in Zordon's words. He found neither, but that didn't fully ease his concerns. And what about the power itself? The Force requires years of training to master safely because without discipline, it corrupts. Power leads to more power, which leads to the dark side. Your morphing energy seems to bypass that training entirely, giving ordinary people abilities that rival Jedi Knights. What prevents them from being corrupted by that power? The same thing that prevents Jedi from falling to the dark side, Zordon replied. Character, community, and constant vigilance. You are correct that power can corrupt. I have witnessed it countless times across millennia. Rangers have fallen to darkness, have betrayed their principles, have become the very evil they once fought. But the morphing energy itself is not inherently corrupting. It is a tool, and like any tool, its morality depends on its wielder. The difference between Rangers and Force users is not the presence or absence of corruption risk, both face that danger, but rather the accessibility of power and the philosophy surrounding its use. The ancient mentor's form brightened slightly as he continued, passion entering his telepathic voice. The Jedi Order restricted Force training to those born with sensitivity, creating an aristocracy of power. Only those with sufficient midi-chlorian counts could become Jedi, regardless of character or potential. This system had wisdom, untrained force. Sensitives can be dangerous, but it also meant billions of worthy individuals could never access the abilities needed to protect their communities. Rangers democratize power, Master Skywalker. We say that heroism is not birthright but choice, that anyone with sufficient courage and compassion deserves the opportunity to defend others. Luke felt the philosophical divide opening between them. The Jedi way had always been selective, recognizing that the Force required innate connection and extensive training. But Zordon's approach suggested that exclusivity itself was a flaw. That by restricting power to the Force-sensitive few, the Jedi had abandoned countless potential heroes to helplessness. It was a challenging perspective, one that touched on Luke's own insecurities about rebuilding the Jedi Order when his own training had been rushed and incomplete. I understand your philosophy, Luke said slowly, but philosophy doesn't prevent tragedy. What's your contingency plan if a Ranger goes rogue? If someone figures out how to synthesize power coins outside your control? If the Empire captures one of your Rangers and reverse engineers the morphing technology? All legitimate concerns, Zordon acknowledged. For the first, a rogue Ranger can be stopped by their team. The power coins create bonds between Rangers, allowing them to sense each other and coordinate at distances. A fallen Ranger cannot hide from their former companions, and their morphing abilities are not superior to loyal Rangers, merely equal. For the second concern, power coin synthesis, requires specific knowledge I have not shared and materials that are difficult to acquire. Kyber crystals capable of channeling morphing energy are rare, and without understanding the synthesis process I developed, attempts to replicate coins will fail or create unstable artifacts. For the third, captured Rangers can demorph, rendering themselves ordinary beings. The Empire could torture them for information, yes, but Rangers are trained to resist interrogation, and the coins themselves will not function for unworthy wielders. Luke listened carefully, evaluating Zordon's responses. They were measured and thoughtful, addressing practical concerns rather than dismissing them. But something still troubled him, a disturbance in the Force he couldn't quite identify. It wasn't coming from Zordon himself or even from the morphing energy. It was something else, a shadow lurking at the edges of his awareness. I don't sense deception in you, Luke admitted, but I also don't sense humility. You speak of choosing worthy warriors, of power coins that judge character, of training rangers to resist corruption. But you're fallible, Zordon. You're an ancient being with vast experience, but you make mistakes. You misjudge people. You're operating in a galaxy you don't fully understand, applying principles from your home dimension to realities that might not align perfectly. What happens when you're wrong? When you choose someone who seems worthy but isn't? When your morphing technology interacts with the Force in ways you didn't predict? For the first time in their conversation, Zordon's telepathic presence carried something other than confidence. A note of weariness, of ancient grief carried across millennia. You are correct, Master Skywalker. I am fallible. I have chosen poorly before. I have trained rangers who fell to darkness, have watched worlds burn because my guidance was insufficient, have lived with the consequences of my mistakes for thousands of years. I do not claim perfection. I claim only purpose and commitment to learning from failure. The vulnerability in Zordon's admission affected Luke more than any confident assertion could have. This wasn't an arrogant entity claiming infallibility. This was a mentor who had lived long enough to know his limitations and continued trying anyway. Then we're not so different, Luke said quietly. The Jedi made terrible mistakes too. They became complacent, political, disconnected from the people they claimed to serve. Their certainty in their own wisdom blinded them to Palpatine's manipulations. I'm trying to rebuild the Order without repeating those errors, but I'm terrified I'll fail, that I'll train someone who becomes the next Vader, or that my teachings will create a new generation of Jedi too rigid to adapt when the galaxy needs them. Understanding passed between the ancient mentor and the young Jedi, a recognition of shared burden. Both carried responsibility for shaping warriors who would determine the galaxy's future. Both faced the possibility of catastrophic failure despite best intentions. Both understood that power, whether granted through the Force or morphing technology, required wisdom to wield justly. Perhaps we can learn from each other, Zordon suggested. Your understanding of the Force and its dangers could help me adapt Ranger training to this galaxy's specific challenges. My experience training warriors across dimensions might offer perspectives on Jedi instruction that your Order's traditions don't encompass. We need not be rivals, Master Skywalker. We are both mentors seeking to create protectors, not conquerors. Luke considered this carefully. Collaboration rather than competition. It made sense logically, but emotionally he still felt resistance. The Force whispered warnings, but it also whispered something else. Balance. The eternal struggle between light and dark, between different philosophies and approaches to power. Maybe the galaxy needed both Jedi and Rangers, multiple paths toward the same goal. I won't oppose your program, Luke decided finally, but I'm going to watch it closely. And if I see your Rangers heading toward darkness, if I sense the morphing technology creating threats rather than preventing them, I will act. The Force demands it. I would expect nothing less, Zordon replied. In fact, I welcome your vigilance. External oversight from someone with your moral clarity and Force sensitivity could prevent exactly the kinds of errors we both fear. Consider yourself an unofficial advisor to the Ranger program, Master Skywalker. Challenge me when you believe I'm wrong. Trust that I will listen even when disagreement is uncomfortable. The meeting concluded with wary alliance rather than trust, but that was perhaps the most honest outcome possible. Luke departed with his concerns noted, but not resolved, while Zordon returned his focus to training the current Rangers and planning the next phase of the program's expansion. both mentors carried the weight of their responsibilities into an uncertain future. But neither Zordon nor Luke sensed the third presence that had been monitoring their conversation through dark force techniques. Far from Chandrila, in a hidden facility on a forgotten outer rim world, the fallen Inquisitor known as Shade had listened to every word through a network of corrupted probe droids he had seeded across Republic space. He had learned much from that conversation. The power coins required kyber crystals and specific synthesis knowledge. Rangers bonded with their teams through morphing energy connections, and Zordon himself possessed limitations that could be exploited. Shade smiled beneath his scarred face, his yellow eyes gleaming with dark side corruption and ambition. If the power coins judged worthiness, he would simply create his own standard of worth. If the morphing energy required kyber crystals, he would take them. And if Zordon believed Rangers had to be noble protectors, Shade would show him what Dark Rangers could achieve when ambition and power combined without restriction. The fallen Inquisitor reached for a stolen kyber crystal sitting before him on a meditation platform. Its once blue clarity corrupted to blood red through dark side immersion. He had been preparing for weeks, studying what Republic intelligence networks had leaked about Ranger technology, meditating on the morphing energy signatures he had sensed from across the galaxy, and developing his own synthesis technique, one that channeled the dark side through technology meant for light. "You created protectors, Zordon," Shade whispered to himself, his voice carrying the rasp of long-dormant vocal cords damaged during Order 66's chaos. "I will create something you fear, something your Rangers cannot stop because I understand what they don't. Power answers to those strong enough to seize it, not those passive enough to be chosen." He began the dark synthesis, corrupting the stolen kyber crystal with methodical precision. Where Zordon had communicated with the crystal structure, Shade dominated it. Where the ancient mentor had created bridges between force and morphing energy, the fallen Inquisitor carved channels that would amplify the dark side through technology meant to serve the light. It was violation, corruption, and brilliance combined. The dark power coin took shape before him, pulsing with sickly crimson light and emanating malevolence that would have repelled any of Zordon's chosen Rangers. But to Shade, it sang of destiny fulfilled, of power that had been denied him when the Jedi fell, and he had escaped into darkness without Sith to teach him. He had wandered for years, neither fully Jedi nor Sith, mastering techniques from both traditions while belonging to neither. Now he would become something unprecedented, a Dark Ranger, wielding morphing technology corrupted by the Force's shadow, serving no master but his own ambition. And when he had perfected the technique, when he had proven the dark synthesis worked, he would find others like himself. Fallen Jedi, dark side adepts, Force-sensitive criminals who craved power without the Sith's rigid philosophies. He would build his own team, his own dark reflection of everything Zordon's Rangers represented. The game had begun, though Zordon's Rangers didn't know it yet. They had fought stormtroopers and tested themselves against Mandalorians. Now they would face something far more dangerous, an enemy who wielded their own power twisted into its antithesis, who understood the morphing energy's potential for corruption better than the ancient mentor who had created it. The true trials were about to begin, and the galaxy would learn whether Ranger power could survive contact with the dark side's corrupting influence. The disturbance rippled through the Force like a scream, and Luke Skywalker felt it from across the galaxy. He was meditating on Yavin 4 when the dark side surge erupted, so violent and sudden that it nearly knocked him from his centered state. This wasn't the ambient darkness that always existed in the galaxy's shadows. This was focused malevolence channeled through something fundamentally wrong, something that twisted energy meant for protection into a weapon of domination. Luke reached for his comm link immediately. "Zordon, do you feel that?" The ancient mentor's response came through frequencies that bypassed conventional communication, his consciousness reaching directly into Luke's mind through the thin connection they had established after their Chandrila meeting. I sense it, yes. The morphing energy has been corrupted. Someone has synthesized a dark power coin using techniques I never taught, channeling the Force's shadow through technology meant to serve the light. This should not be possible. But it is possible, Luke replied grimly, his Jedi training interpreting the disturbance's source. And whoever created it is coming for your Rangers. I can feel their intent. They want to prove that your philosophy is flawed, that power serves the strong rather than the worthy. On Dantooine, the 5 Rangers felt the disturbance differently. They had been training in their Zord coordination exercises when the morphing energy connecting them suddenly twisted, like a sixth sense screaming warning. Kale demorphed immediately, her hand going to the power coin at her chest. The crystal felt hot, almost burning against her skin, resonating with something that made her nauseated. "What is that?" Sarah demanded, her own coin reacting similarly. "It feels like our power, but wrong, corrupted." Zordon's time warp tube flared brightly as the ancient mentor focused his consciousness on the threat. A dark power coin has been activated. Someone has taken kyber crystals, subjected them to dark side corruption, and synthesized morphing technology without regard for worthiness or moral restriction. The wielder is powerful in the dark side and heading directly for your position. You must prepare for battle unlike any you have faced. True Ordo checked his weapons instinctively, Mandalorian training asserting itself, even as Ranger discipline steadied his nerves. How do we fight someone using our own abilities? If they have morphing power equal to ours, they don't have equal power, Zordon interrupted. They have corrupted power. Dark side energy channeled through morphing technology creates instability, amplifies aggression, and feeds on suffering. This Dark Ranger will be formidable, but their strength is also their weakness. The morphing energy rejects corruption inherently. They are fighting against their own power source, even as they wield it. Yara's medical training made her ask the critical question: can we save them? If someone has been corrupted by this dark coin, can we break the connection and redeem them? I do not know, Zordon admitted, his ancient consciousness carrying genuine uncertainty. This has never occurred in my experience. Dark Rangers have existed, individuals who betrayed their principles and fell to evil, but they were rejected by their coins naturally. This is different. This is someone forcing the morphing energy to serve darkness through sheer will and dark side technique. Redemption may be possible, but only if they choose it. You cannot force salvation any more than they can force worthiness. The enemy arrived within the hour, dropping from orbit in a stolen Imperial shuttle that crashed deliberately into Dantooine's grasslands outside the Ranger training facility. The impact crater smoldered with dark side energy, and from the wreckage emerged a figure that made the Rangers' power coins burn with reactive heat. Shade stood before them in twisted mockery of Ranger armor. His suit was crimson, so dark it appeared black in shadows, its surface crawling with red lightning that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The helmet's visor glowed with yellow-orange light, Sith eyes visible through morphing technology. His presence radiated malevolence so thick it felt physical, pressing against the Rangers like gravitational force. Zordon of Eltar. Shade's voice emerged distorted through his corrupted helmet, carrying harmonics that suggested multiple voices speaking simultaneously. Your precious Rangers are pathetic. You claim the morphing energy serves the worthy, but I have proven otherwise. Power serves those strong enough to seize it, and I have seized power you cannot comprehend. The 5 Rangers morphed immediately, their colored armor manifesting in cascades of light that stood in stark contrast to Shade's dark emergence. They formed their standard combat formation, Kale at point, Jax and Sarah flanking, True and Yara providing support. But even through their team bond, they felt fear. This enemy radiated wrongness on levels their morphing energy instinctively recoiled from. "You're using stolen technology for evil," Kale called out, her Red Ranger authority steady despite the terror building in her chest. "That power wasn't meant for you. It's corrupting you, feeding on your darkness. Let us help you before it consumes everything you are." Shade laughed, the sound like breaking glass and screaming metal combined. "Help me. I am more powerful than you can imagine. I have mastered what your mentor fears to teach. That morphing energy amplifies what already exists within the wielder. You five are constrained by morality, by teamwork, by weakness disguised as virtue. I have no such limitations. I am what Rangers should be, pure strength, unburdened by compassion." He attacked without warning, moving faster than their enhanced reflexes could track initially. His corrupted energy blade manifested, a weapon that looked like a lightsaber filtered through morphing technology and dark side corruption, and carved through space toward Kale's position. She barely blocked, her own blade meeting his in an explosion of red and crimson sparks that sent feedback through her morphing connection. The impact wasn't just physical. Shade's corrupted power carried dark side taint that tried to infiltrate through their weapons' contact, seeking psychological vulnerabilities to exploit. Kyle felt hatred and fear pressing against her mind, searching for cracks where darkness could seep in. Only her training with Zordon, constant meditation on courage and compassion, kept her centered against the assault. The other Rangers converged, attempting to overwhelm Shade through coordinated attack. But the Dark Ranger fought like nothing they had encountered. He moved with Inquisitor training enhanced by morphing abilities, his blade work incorporating lightsaber techniques, while his physical capabilities matched their enhanced strength. Worse, the dark side corruption amplified his aggression, making him unpredictable and willing to accept damage if it meant dealing more punishment in return. Jax tried to flank, his Blue Ranger precision seeking vulnerable points in Shade's defense. The Dark Ranger caught him with Force Lightning channeled through morphing energy, a technique that shouldn't work, but did because Shade had violated every principle of synthesis Zordon had established. The electricity threw Jax backward, his armor smoking, his power coin flickering dangerously. "Blue!" Yara screamed, breaking formation to shield her fallen teammate. Her pink energy barriers manifested, protecting Jax from follow-up attacks, but Shade simply laughed and shifted targets. He moved like a hunting predator, isolating Rangers and exploiting their protective instincts against them. Sarah's yellow armor blurred as she charged, her aggressive nature channeled into desperate assault. "You want power without morality? I'll show you what that looks like." Her energy blade struck Shade's defenses repeatedly. Driven by fury at seeing Jax hurt and memories of her own Imperial past, she knew intimately what corruption looked like, and Shade embodied it absolutely. But rage made her predictable. Shade countered her assault with contemptuous efficiency, his corrupted morphing energy feeding on her anger and using it against her. A dark side enhanced strike sent Sarah crashing into the facility's exterior wall, her armor cracking under impact that would have killed an unmorphed human. True fought with Mandalorian discipline, refusing to let emotion compromise his technique. His black armor weathered Shade's attacks through sheer warrior determination, but even he couldn't maintain defense indefinitely against an opponent who drew strength from suffering inflicted and received. The Mandalorian Ranger found himself being slowly beaten down, his armor's integrity degrading under sustained dark side corruption. Kale faced Shade alone as her team fell around her, the Dark Ranger's yellow eyes glowing with triumph behind his corrupted helmet. "You see now? Your philosophy is weakness. Zordon has lied to you. Power doesn't choose the worthy. The worthy seize power and bend it to their will. I have proven it. Your team is broken. Your mentor's teachings are meaningless. Surrender your power coins and I might let you live. But Kyle didn't surrender. Instead, she reached through the team bond, feeling her fallen ranger's consciousness despite their injuries. They were hurt, but not defeated, weakened, but not broken. And through that connection, she felt something Shade couldn't understand. Love. Not romantic love, but the profound bond between warriors who would die for each other, who fought not for personal glory, but to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. You're right about one thing, Kyle said quietly, her red armor beginning to glow brighter. Power amplifies what exists within the wielder. Your darkness feeds your strength, but our light does the same. The difference is that darkness isolates and light connects. You fight alone. We fight together. She opened her consciousness fully to the team bond, and the other rangers responded despite their injuries. Morphing energy flowed between them, not individual power but shared strength, each ranger contributing what they could to a collective reservoir. It was what Zordon had tried to teach them from the beginning, the fundamental principle that made rangers different from individual warriors. They were one. The combined morphing energy channeled through Kale's red armor, and she moved with speed and precision that exceeded anything she had demonstrated before. This wasn't her power alone. It was 5 rangers fighting through one body, their teamwork translated into physical manifestation. Her blade struck Shade's defenses with force that shattered his corrupted energy weapon, and before he could recover, she had him pinned. You can still choose differently, Kale said, her blade at Shade's throat but not executing. The dark coin is destroying you from within. I can feel it through our morphing connection, the corruption eating at your life force, the dark side consuming what you were. Let us help you. For a moment, something flickered in Shade's yellow eyes, recognition, perhaps even regret. But then the dark power coin at his chest pulsed violently, and dark side corruption surged through him in waves that forced Kale backward. Shade rose, his body beginning to crack as the corrupted morphing energy proved too unstable to contain. I don't need redemption, Shade snarled, his voice degenerating into inhuman tones. I need only power, and if this body fails, I will take yours. He lunged in a final desperate attack, but his corrupted form had degraded too far. The dark power coin shattered, unable to maintain cohesion under the conflicting forces of morphing energy and dark side corruption, and Shade's armor exploded outward in a cascade of crimson lightning. The man beneath the armor collapsed, his body scarred by techniques meant for machines being forced through mortal flesh. The rangers demorphed and approached carefully. Shade lay dying, his corrupted coin destroyed, his force presence fading as the dark side released him in death. Yara knelt beside him, her medical training automatically assessing injuries far beyond her ability to treat. She reached for his hand anyway, offering comfort in his final moments. "Why?" Yara asked softly. "Why choose this path?" Shade's yellow eyes faded back to human brown as death approached. "Because I was abandoned," he whispered. "The Jedi fell. The Sith ignored me. No one chose me, so I chose myself." His gaze found Zordon's time warp tube, which the ancient mentor had projected holographically to observe the battle. "You're wrong, mentor. Power doesn't serve the worthy. It serves whoever is strong enough to survive it." Then he was gone, and the Rangers stood in silence over the body of their first true enemy. They had won, but victory felt hollow. Shade had been corrupted by power, yes, but he had also been abandoned by every system meant to guide Force-sensitive individuals. The Jedi hadn't found him, the Sith hadn't recruited him. And when Zordon arrived with morphing technology, Shade had seen only another source of power that hadn't chosen him, so he had taken it by force. Zordon's holographic presence dimmed slightly. "This is my failure," the ancient mentor said quietly. "I did not anticipate that someone would corrupt the synthesis process I developed. Shade's death weighs on my conscience, as all preventable tragedies must." Luke Skywalker arrived shortly after, his X-Wing landing near the crater where Shade's shuttle had crashed. He examined the shattered dark power coin with Jedi senses, feeling residual corruption that made him deeply uneasy. This was what he had feared: power without proper guidance leading to destruction. But he also saw the Rangers standing vigil over their fallen enemy, saw their genuine grief at being unable to save someone who had chosen darkness. "This won't be the last," Luke said to Zordon and the assembled Rangers. "Shade proved that your technology can be corrupted. Others will try. Dark side adepts, criminal masterminds, desperate people seeking power they haven't earned. You need to be ready." "We will be," Kale promised, speaking for her team. "And we'll try to save them when possible. Rangers protect everyone, even those who've lost their way." 6 months after Shade's death, the Ranger program had expanded dramatically. Zordon and the New Republic had learned from their first dark enemy, implementing security protocols that made power coin synthesis more controlled while accelerating the training of additional Ranger teams. What had begun as 5 warriors on Dantooine had grown into a network spanning multiple systems, each team bonded through morphing energy and dedicated to protecting regions where Republic fleets couldn't maintain constant presence. The original 5, now designated the Prime Rangers, had become legends across the galaxy. Their successful defense of Chandrila's shipyards, their trial on Mandalore, and their victory against the Dark Ranger Shade had inspired countless stories. Holonews networks broadcast their exploits, sometimes with embellishment that made the Rangers uncomfortable. But Zordon counseled them to accept the attention as part of their responsibility. Symbols mattered as much as actions, and the galaxy desperately needed symbols of hope. Kale stood in the command center Zordon had established on Coruscant, watching holographic displays that tracked Ranger teams across known space. Blue Sector showed a team responding to pirate attacks near Ryloth. Green Sector had Rangers working with local security forces to evacuate civilians from a planet threatened by Imperial remnant raids. Gold Sector tracked a new team still in training, learning the fundamentals Kale's group had pioneered. "It's working," Jax observed from his technical station, where he monitored Zord production and morphing energy signatures across the network. "Crime rates are down in every system with active Ranger presence. Imperial remnants are avoiding territories they know we patrol. The New Republic's approval ratings have increased significantly. People feel safer knowing we're out there." Sarah leaned against the wall, her expression more troubled than celebratory. "But we're also making enemies. That Hutt cartel we disrupted on Nar Shaddaa has put bounties on our heads. Half the Imperial warlords view us as priority targets. And there are rumors, whispers in the underworld about people trying to synthesize their own power coins using information Shade left behind." "Shade's notes were destroyed," True said from where he maintained his weapons, Mandalorian discipline keeping his gear in perfect condition. "We secured everything after his death." "Official notes, yes," Sarah countered. "But he talked to people before he attacked us. Dark side cultists, criminal tech savants, anyone who would listen to his theories about corrupting morphing energy. Some of that information is still circulating. It's only a matter of time before someone else tries what he succeeded at, even if it killed him." Yara looked up from the medical reports she was reviewing. "Then we stay vigilant. We continue what we started. Zordon warned us from the beginning that being a Ranger meant constant struggle. We knew this wouldn't be easy." The conversation was interrupted by Zordon's presence manifesting in the command center's central hologram projector. The ancient mentor's time warp had been partially repaired over the months, his connection to the morphing grid strengthening as he established deeper roots in this galaxy's reality. He appeared more solid now, less translucent, his voice carrying greater resonance. "Rangers, I have received concerning intelligence from our Republic contacts. Moff Gideon has disappeared from Imperial Remnant territories. His last known location was near Navarro, but he's vanished completely, along with several of his most loyal officers and a significant portion of his remaining forces." Kale felt tension coil in her stomach. Gideon was the most competent Imperial commander they had faced, the one who had nearly succeeded in stealing Republic corvettes before their intervention. Any indication of where he went or what he's planning? "Luke Skywalker has sensed disturbances in the unknown regions," Zordon replied. "Not dark side corruption specifically, but concentrated intent. Someone is building something. Consolidating resources and followers for a purpose we cannot yet discern. Luke believes Gideon may be involved, possibly coordinating with other Imperial remnants to create a unified threat. The First Order," Mon Mothma said, her holographic form appearing beside Zordon's. The Chancellor looked tired. Years of rebuilding a government from rebellion roots had aged her visibly. Intelligence has been tracking reports of Imperial officers fleeing to the unknown regions for months. If Gideon has joined them, if they're organizing into something more coordinated than scattered remnants. She didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone in the command center understood the implications. The New Republic had won the war, but they hadn't eliminated the ideology that drove the Empire. Imperial loyalists who refused to accept defeat were regrouping beyond known space, building strength for another attempt at galactic domination. And this time, they would know about the Rangers, would plan countermeasures, would seek ways to neutralize or steal morphing technology. "We need to expand faster," Kale decided, her Red Ranger authority carrying weight that went beyond her official rank. "Train more teams, manufacture more Zords, establish Ranger presence in systems that border the unknown regions. If something is building out there, we need to be ready to respond." "Agreed," Zordon said. "But expansion must not compromise quality. Every Ranger must be worthy, every team must bond properly, every power coin must be synthesized with absolute precision. Speed is important, but principle is paramount. One shade nearly destroyed your team. Imagine if we created dozens of potential Dark Rangers by rushing the selection process." The reminder sobered everyone. Shade's attack had revealed fundamental vulnerabilities in the Ranger program. The technology could be corrupted, the power could be stolen, and individuals rejected by proper selection might force their way into morphing capabilities through dark side techniques. Zordon's warnings about worthiness weren't just philosophy. They were practical security measures that prevented exactly the kind of catastrophe Shade had represented. Luke Skywalker entered the command center moments later, his presence in the Force announcing his arrival before the doors opened. The young Jedi had become a regular consultant to the Ranger program, his initial suspicions evolving into cautious partnership. He nodded to the Rangers before addressing Zordon directly. "I've completed the reconnaissance you requested. The unknown regions definitely harbor Imperial consolidation. I sensed organized military structures, weapons manufacturing, and training facilities. But there's something else too. Force-sensitive presences, dark but not Sith. Individuals who studied under Inquisitors or learned dark side techniques independently. If they're working with the Imperial remnants, they'll target the Rangers specifically," Zordon finished. "Dark Force users who want to prove themselves superior to Jedi. Imperial commanders who want to eliminate the New Republic's most effective rapid response force, and potential Dark Rangers seeking the power shade demonstrated. The convergence of threats is not coincidental. We have become priority targets precisely because we are effective. Kale looked at her team, Jax analyzing data with technical precision, Sarah checking weapons with former Imperial thoroughness, True maintaining equipment with Mandalorian discipline, Yara reviewing casualty reports with medic's compassion. They had come so far in 6 months, had transformed from uncertain volunteers into confident rangers. But the challenges ahead would be exponentially harder than anything they had faced. "Then we prepare," Kale said simply. "We've proven Rangers can work in this galaxy. Now we prove Rangers can protect it against threats that specifically target us. Zordon, accelerate the training programs for new teams. Jax, optimize our Zord deployment strategies for unknown regions operations. Sarah, work with Republic intelligence to identify potential Dark Ranger candidates before they can synthesize corrupted coins. True, coordinate with Mandalorian clans. We'll need allies for what's coming. Yara, prepare medical protocols for casualties from dark side enhanced combat." Orders issued, the team dispersed to their assignments. Mon Mothma's hologram lingered, studying Kyle with the appraising gaze of someone who had led rebellions and built governments. "You've grown into your role well, Lieutenant Torin. When this started, you were a soldier following orders. Now you're a leader making decisions that affect the entire galaxy." Kale smiled slightly. "I had good teachers. Zordon showed me that leadership means serving those you protect, not commanding them. And the team showed me that strength comes from unity, not individual power." After Mon Mothma disconnected, Kyle stood alone with Zordon in the command center. The ancient mentor's glowing eyes studied his first Red Ranger with satisfaction and concern mixed equally. "You know this is only beginning," Zordon said quietly. "Shade was one individual, barely trained, experimenting with corrupted synthesis. The enemies you'll face next will be organized, experienced, and specifically prepared to counter everything that makes Rangers effective. Some battles you will lose. Some Rangers will fall. Some days you will question whether this entire program was a mistake." "I know," Kale replied. "But I also know that every civilian we've saved, every Imperial raid we've stopped, every system that sleeps safer because Rangers patrol their space, that matters. We're making a difference, Zordon." "Maybe that difference won't save the galaxy alone. Maybe we're just one piece of a larger solution. But we're a piece that didn't exist before you arrived. You gave us this chance. Now we're going to prove it was worth it." Zordon's presence warmed with something that might have been pride. "You remind me why I have devoted millennia to training Rangers across dimensions. Not for the power I grant them, but for what they do with that power once it's theirs. You 5 have honored the Ranger legacy, Kale Torin. Whatever comes next, you will face it together, and you will not face it alone." Across the galaxy, in the unknown region's deepest shadows, Moff Gideon stood before a gathering of Imperial officers, Dark Force adepts, and representatives from systems that had never accepted New Republic authority. Behind him, holographic displays showed intelligence reports about Ranger capabilities, Zord specifications, and most critically, fragments of Shade's research into dark power coin synthesis. "The New Republic believes their Rangers are invincible," Gideon said, his voice carrying the certainty that had made him one of the Empire's most effective commanders. "They believe morphing technology gives them insurmountable advantage, but every weapon has a counter. Every strength conceals weakness. We will find those weaknesses. We will exploit them. And when the time comes, we will show the galaxy that colored armor and noble intentions mean nothing against superior strategy and willingness to do whatever victory requires." He gestured to a containment chamber where scientists worked on synthesizing dark power coins using methods improved from Shade's failures. The First Order will rise, and when it does, it will have its own Rangers, warriors who embrace power without sentiment, who understand that strength requires sacrifice and dominance. The New Republic's experiment in democratic protection will end. Order will return to the galaxy, and these so-called Power Rangers will be among the first to fall. The assembled officers and Dark Adepts voiced their agreement, their collective ambition focused on a single goal: prove that Zordon's philosophy was naive fantasy, that power served the ruthless rather than the worthy, and that the Empire's vision would prevail despite the setback at Endor. But they didn't know what the Rangers had learned through 6 months of combat, training, and sacrifice. They didn't understand that morphing power required genuine connection between teammates, that dark synthesis created instability even when technically successful, and most critically, that Rangers fought not for victory, but for protection. And there was no more powerful motivator than defending those who couldn't defend themselves. The stage was set. The First Order gathered its strength in darkness. The Rangers expanded their network across known space. Luke Skywalker continued rebuilding the Jedi Order, creating another path toward galactic protection. Mon Mothma's New Republic struggled to maintain democracy while facing threats that tested every principle it stood for. And Zordon watched over it all, an ancient consciousness from another dimension, guiding warriors through trials that would determine this galaxy's future. The real war hadn't begun yet, but it was coming, and when it arrived, the Power Rangers would be ready, not because they were the strongest or most powerful, but because they understood something their enemies never could. True strength came not from power wielded, but from principles defended. Not from victories claimed, but from lives protected. Not from individual glory, but from teamwork that transformed ordinary beings into legendary heroes. The morphing energy pulsed through the galaxy, connecting Rangers across thousands of light years, creating a network of protectors who stood against darkness wherever it threatened. And in that network center, 5 warriors who had been chosen for worthiness continued proving that choice correct every day. The galaxy had changed. The Power Rangers had seen to that. And no matter what threats emerged from the unknown regions, no matter how many Dark Rangers tried to corrupt what Zordon had built, no matter how the Empire rebranded itself, the Rangers would be there, protecting, defending, never surrendering, always together. Because that was what Rangers did. That was what they had always done, across dimensions and millennia. And this galaxy, broken and desperate for heroes, had finally received them. The Morphin Grid had found a new home in the Star Wars galaxy, and through it, Zordon of Eltar had given countless beings the chance to become something greater than themselves. The 5 Prime Rangers, Kale, Jax, Sarah, True, and Yara, had proven that worthiness transcended origin, that courage and compassion could be found anywhere, and that teamwork transformed ordinary individuals into extraordinary protectors. Their journey had just begun. Ahead lay battles against the emerging First Order, confrontations with Dark Rangers who sought power without principle, and the constant challenge of maintaining their ideals while facing enemies who rejected every value they held sacred. Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order and Zordon's Rangers would learn to work together, 2 philosophies united by common purpose. Mon Mothma's New Republic would continue relying on these armored warriors to reach places conventional military forces couldn't protect. But in the quiet moments between crises, when the Rangers demorphed and remembered they were still people beneath the power, they would carry one truth above all others. They had been chosen not for strength or skill, but for character. And that character would be tested again and again, refined through trials until it shone as brightly as their morphing energy. The galaxy far, far away had its Power Rangers now, and whether facing Star Destroyers or Dark Force users, whether defending remote colonies or core worlds, whether celebrated as heroes or targeted as threats, they would endure. Because Rangers always did. It was their way. It was their destiny. It was who they were. And somewhere in the unknown regions, where the First Order gathered its strength and dark powers plotted revenge, a new generation of enemies learned what Shade had discovered too late. The morphing energy chose its wielders for a reason. Those who tried to take power by force would find it slipped through their fingers like water. But those who accepted it with humility, who wielded it with compassion, who shared it through teamwork, they became legends that echoed across the stars. The Force had shaped this galaxy for millennia. Now it had a companion, a different kind of universal power that answered to different laws. And in the synthesis between Force and morphin grid, between Jedi wisdom and Ranger courage, this galaxy might finally find the balance it had sought for so long. Not light erasing dark, or dark consuming light, but something new. Protectors who understood that true power came not from domination but from sacrifice, not from command but from service, not from fear but from hope. May the morphin grid flow through them, may the Force be with them, and may their legend inspire generations yet unborn to believe that anyone, absolutely anyone, could become a hero if they possessed the courage to try. May the Force be with you. More stories await.